UFC Fight Night Vegas 15, Blaydes versus Lewis takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with our early prelim opener of Kamaka III versus Jonathan Pearce. Now, by the way, I'm just going to mention, this is only a $4 billion company, the UFC, so they haven't updated their schedule on Google yet to say what the layout of the card is. I'm on Tapology. If you want to know the layout of the card that I'm using, that's what I'll be doing. So if you want to follow along, Tapology is the site. Early prelim opener, Kamaka III versus Jonathan Pearce. Great matchup. Kamaka, a dangerous guy, a featherweight, now stepping up to lightweight to take on Jonathan Pearce. Coming off a loss to Joe Lozon is Jonathan Pearce. Quite embarrassing at this point, to be honest with you. I feel like if Jonathan Pearce was going to be anything special, he would beat Joe Lozon at this point. But I do want to say that Kamaka moving up a weight class is a big deal because Kamaka is not a big featherweight. And I feel like the only reason he's moving up here is not because of a grand plan to make a run in the lightweight division. It's because it's on short notice and he doesn't have to cut the weight, so he's stepping in against a guy who he sees is 9-4 in Jonathan Pearce. But I feel like it's going to backfire on Kamaka. He's not quite big enough, I don't feel like, to make this a challenging fight against Jonathan Pearce. I like Kamaka. I think he's really good. I think if he stayed at featherweight, he could make a run against some other contenders, but things seem to be too close at featherweight. And Tony Kelly, as much as he looked good against Ali El-Quasi, it was still a razor-close fight. And those are bad recorded guys. Like, these are the bottom kind of guys of the featherweight division right now. And Kamaka hasn't really stood out and separated himself from the pack. And I don't think he's going to jump up a weight class and do it to a much bigger guy in Jonathan Pearce, who's got the reach advantage, who's 6 feet tall compared to Kamaka, who I believe is like 5'7". I'm just going to check it right now to make sure. 5'7", 6 foot guy at lightweight. He's a much bigger man. He's very strong as well. And people don't realize this, but before the Joe Lozon fight, Jonathan Pearce was having a pretty good record. I like his nickname JSP as well. It makes sense, of course, but he beat a guy 11-4 in Jacob Rosales with a third round finish. Derek Sanders 3-1, 6-1 Omar Johnson by KO in the second round. He's beat some decent competition. He lost all at once, all in a row. So it's kind of more acceptable, because I feel like when I see a losses separated throughout a guy's career, it's like, okay, you haven't had a chance to really readdress things, but they all happened around the same time. Since then, he hasn't really lost a fight and has been on a roll since 2017, the second half of 2017. Been looking good. Then he lost to Joe Lozon. I think he's going to bounce back against Kamaka, who's just going to be a little bit too small, and I haven't really seen the power that tells me he's going to hang a division above. I could see Jonathan Pearce getting this one done by third round finish. He's a grinder. He'll get it done as the fight goes on in the second half of the fight. Moving on up the card to another fight on the early prelims, Nate Maness versus Luke Sanders. A great matchup. Nate Maness 12-1, Luke Sanders 13-3. Luke Sanders has been around for a long time in the UFC, had some good finishes, coming off a good finish especially against Henan Barral. Hasn't been too active, which is going to be a bit of a problem here in my opinion against a guy in Nate Maness, because he hasn't fought since February of 2019. This sounds rare, but this will be Luke Sanders' first fight in the cage under these circumstances without a crowd, and Nate Maness has already done that this year. He looked very good against Johnny Munoz Jr. in August. He fought again in February of 2020 as well. I will say this though, it was a weird fight with Johnny Munoz Jr. because he didn't win the fight because he was losing the fight, but Johnny Munoz Jr. got a point taken away, which gave Nate Maness the round, which gave him the overall fight because it was a close one, but Johnny Munoz Jr. was doing a bit better. But to be honest with you, the only reason the point was taken away is because Johnny Munoz Jr. landed about 4 groin shots that were quite bad. So, like, if that doesn't affect Nate Maness' performance, I don't know what will, but he's had good performances other than that. Beat a guy 15-4 in Jesse Arnett, 11-4 in Cal Machado, Mark McDonald. I shouldn't have even mentioned his name. He's got a terrible record, but he's been around. He's had an amateur career. He's very experienced. I think I'm going to pick him against a veteran, Luke Sanders, who's been out for quite some time. He's been KO'd in his career as well by Andrei Sukumtar. The anger running through my blood. Not only did you lose to Andrei Sukumtar, but you had the audacity, you dared to be TKO'd by Andrei Sukumtar. It's a disgrace. I'm going to be going with Nate Maness getting a job done by a grinding decision, probably 29-28, 30-27. You decide. Thank you very much. Moving on up the card, Sumaderji versus Malcolm Gordon. Malcolm Gordon really let me down in his debut, got triangled immediately by Amir Albaazi and didn't look like he was any threat whatsoever, I'll be honest with you. Sumaderji is going to be the bigger guy in there. He's going to be the bantamweight coming down into the flyweight division. He actually beat Andrei Sukumtar, which doesn't sound too good because it seems like everyone can, because Sukumtar is terrible, but Sumaderji is He beat up Sukumtar pretty badly, to be honest with you. Like, he doubled him many rounds in those strikes. Really did beat up on him for 3 rounds. Looked very good. I was a little bit questionable about Sumaderji when he first came onto the scene. Lost his first fight to Lewis Smolka, but Lewis Smolka's a veteran. He can do some tricks. Now he's coming down to the flyweight division. I do believe he's going to have an advantage over Malcolm Gordon, who's been KO'd many times in his career. I think if he's landing that many shots on Andre Sukumtar, I don't see Malcolm Gordon being able to take those shots for too long. And I could see Sumaderji getting the job done. I hope I was pronouncing his name correctly, by the way. I think he'll get the job done by TKO. Malcolm Gordon's been TKO'd 3 times in his career by not-so-good guys. 11-7, Dimitri Wardenberg, KO'd in the first round. It's an unfortunate time for Malcolm Gordon. He had potential. If he had got past Amir Albaazi, maybe he could have strung together some momentum, but he didn't look too good against him, and just didn't look like he posed a threat, to be honest with you. He didn't look like a physical presence in the cage. I know that sounds weird, but I just didn't sense anything from him. Sumaderji, I feel like he's going to get the job done. TKO him in the second round and get it done. Moving on up the card to the prelims. Rachel Ostovich versus Gina Mazany is on the prelims, according to Tapology. Great matchup for many different reasons. Mainly not the skillful reasons, but still, 6-4 Gina Mazany, 4-5 Rachel Ostovich. Best fight promotion in the world. 4-5. All good, though. We'll move on. I believe that Rachel Ostovich is going to get the job done. I like Gina Mazany. She's not very good, though. To be honest with you, she doesn't look very athletic either, and she looked really bad in her last performance against Julia Avila. I mean, got finished immediately with knees to the body, but I mean, it was a decent fight. She has some good wins in her career, but she's been finished a couple of times now, and Rachel Ostovich is the younger fighter. She's going to learn more in between these fights. Feel like she has more skills to add to her game than Gina Mazany is, who's coming out of her prime, 32 years of age. I think that Rachel Ostovich is going to get the job done, probably by submission in the second round. In the third round, she's beat some good girls. Obviously, she hasn't got the best record in the world, but she won on The Ultimate Fighter a couple of fights, I guess, and she fought on The Ultimate Fighter finale fight in the UFC and won a fight there by submission. I like Rachel Ostovich. She had good scrambles against Paige Van Zandt, but Gina Mazany, I just don't see anything promising at this point in her career. Didn't look too good against Avila. I'm going to go with Rachel Ostovich, out-grappling her, being more athletic and just being more youthful and skillful and learning more between fights. Rachel Ostovich gets it done. Plus, she might be on roids, so who knows. Moving on, up the card. Martin Day versus Anderson Dos Santos. I'm going to go with Martin Day here. I like Anderson Dos Santos. He's a very good fighter. He's been around for a while. 20-8. That's a veteran's record if I've ever seen one. 35 years of age. He's had a couple of scraps. His last few performances haven't been too good. Lost to Nad Narimani. Then lost to Andre Ewell as well, which doesn't really... I mean, he didn't just lose to Andre Ewell, because we've seen guys like Jonathan Martinez have a good fight with Andre Ewell, arguably beat him. We've seen guys Nathaniel Wood handle Andre Ewell. So to see Anderson Dos Santos fall short, it just puts him below the level of Ewell. There's a level above outside the rankings at bantamweight. Then there's the Andre Ewell kind of level, the Jonathan Martinez kind of level. Then there's sort of this guy now, because he's set himself below that with that performance against Ewell, because other guys have made it close. Even Erwin Rivera made the Andre Ewell fight a little bit closer, I'll be honest with you. Erwin Rivera had a decent performance against Andre Ewell, and Andre Ewell only won it by split decision, even though I thought he won quite clearly. Still, I think it just tells you, Erwin Rivera's not the best fighter in the world. 10-5, now 10-6 record for a reason. I'm going to be going with Martin Day over Anderson Dos Santos here. I don't like this fight for Anderson Dos Santos. Martin Day is a dangerous guy. I know he got KO'd by Davey Grant quite recently, but it's been 4.5 months. Not the ideal situation, but it's not like he's turning around 2 months later or 3 months later. He's had a little bit of time off. I thought he got robbed completely against Ping Wang Lee. I have no idea how they gave it to Ping Wang Lee, but they somehow managed to find that decision. Like every single card, it feels like. Rest in peace, Daniel Rodriguez's career. Dalby stole it, but all good. Davey Grant, good fighter. Looked good against Davey Grant. I mean, not Davey Grant. Martin Day looked good against Davey Grant. Great fighter. Got KO'd in the third round, but he was doing good in that fight. Beat Ping Wang Lee, in my opinion. Beat some good guys. Brandy Huang, who was 8-0 at the time, got KO'd in the second round. He just looks good in his losses, in my opinion. And also, he could have beat Jamie Alvarez on the Contender Series. There's some tough ones, you know what I mean? But I don't know how. Let me just check the stats for the Contender Series fight real quick and just read a couple of them out right now, because I don't know how Martin Day lost to Jamie Alvarez on the Contender Series. To this day, it made no sense to me. Let me just check it again. Martin Day versus Jamie Alvarez. Let me look at these stats. Right, so you got Martin Day 24... Oh, Okay, maybe Jamont Alvarez did beat him, but Martin Day came back really. That's what I'm remembering about the fight. The third round in the Jamie Alvarez fight. Maybe Alvarez could have snuck the first 2 rounds. I understand this, because all I remember from the fight was the third round of Martin Day just piecing him up the entire time. I like the cardio of Martin Day going into the later round. That's just the only thing that stuck out in my memory about his Contender Series fight, was him just wiping the floor with Alvarez in the third round. Good matchup. I think Martin Day's going to get it done as the fight goes on against Anderson dos Santos. We saw Andre You'll have some success with volume against him and putting together some combinations. So long as Martin Day doesn't get KO'd out of nowhere, which I don't see Dos Santos doing to him, I think he gets it done by a decision win or a third round TKO. Moving on up the card, Ashley Evans-Smith versus Norma Jamont. I'm going to go with Ashley Evans-Smith. More fights, more experience. Norma Jamont coming off a KO to Megan Anderson. Didn't look too good, but then again, she didn't belong in the women's featherweight division. But then again, she hasn't beat anyone good outside of that anyway. So I don't even think it's a case of not belonging in the women's featherweight division. She's 30 years of age. She's only had 3 or 5 professional fights. She's only won 4 of them. She won a majority decision against a girl who was 13-8. I mean, this is a real UFC fighter in Ashley Evans-Smith that has some decent wins on her record. She beat Beck Rawlings, not really the best in the world, but she beat Veronica Macedo when she was 5-0. She beat Marion Renault when she was 6-2. Marion Renault's no slouch. She had a good fight with Ketlin Vieira as well. That was a pretty competitive fight, back and forth. Ketlin Vieira got the job done. But listen, Ashley Evans-Smith looked okay against her and was keeping up in the strikes and was making it look competitive. I'm going to be picking her against Norma Jamont here. Jamont hasn't really fought anyone too good, and when she has, she got immediately starched by Megan Anderson up a weight class. I'm going to go with Ashley Evans-Smith by decision, unanimous. Moving on up the card, Bill Aljo versus Spike Carlisle on the main card. I'm so glad this is on the main card. I hope it's on the main card. I don't want to jinx it, because the UFC has it on their schedule as opening up the early prelims. It belongs on the main card. Bill Aljo had a good performance against Ricardo Lamas on short notice. He stepped up. He looked good. I feel like if you're going to be special, you're going to beat Ricardo Lamas. Even on short notice as an up-and-comer, I feel like Spike Carlisle, especially after a KO loss to Qatar Lamas, I feel like you should have gone out there and made it look somewhat easy against him. But Bill Aljo made it a pretty close. It showed me what level he's at. He's lost to some good guys before in his career. He just never seems to be able to get over that hump. He lost to Brendan Lachlan on the Contender Series. Obviously, everyone remembers the controversy about Dana White not signing him. Lost to Jared Gordon as well, who was 11-1 at the time. It just seems like he can beat a bunch of guys, but whenever it's the big one to separate him from the pack, he can't seem to get it. And Spike Carlisle has been beating good guys throughout his career. Some people think he beat Billy Quarantillo. I think he lost, but it was a close fight. And I'll tell you this, if he doesn't walk off at the end of the first round, maybe he wins if he doesn't get dropped by just turning his back and walking away like nothing's going on at the end of the first. Looked very good, showed a good gas tank. And also, he has fixable problems, Spike Carlisle. His technique is good, his grappling is good, his cardio is his problem. And I think that's a more obvious and addressable over a short period of time problem. You know what I mean? Like, if you're lacking technique, it's going to be like, well, you can't just fix it in 3 months. But if you're lacking a bit of cardio, you can make some changes in your game plan, you can make some changes in your training camp, and you can fix your cardio a little bit, and it's a bit better for a short-term fix. So I like that that's sort of his problem in a way. Spike Carlisle, I feel like, is going to get the job done against Bill Aljo. I think Bill Aljo is kind of like a worse version of Quarantillo. Volume guys, good on the feet, throw a lot of weird shots, good grapplers as well, good scramblers. I just feel like Spike Carlisle is going to get the better of Aljo in the scrambles, and I think he'll actually get the submission here after a wild first round. At the end of the first round by rear naked choke or an armbar, something along those lines. Spike Carlisle showed good submission attempts against Quarantillo. It was a good fight, and Quarantillo just went on to look really good against, let me find his name right now, because it was a very good performance. Kyle Nelson looked really good there, took him to a third round and got the one-punch KO. He's no slouch, and Spike Carlisle made it look real close, so I like him. I'm going with Spike Carlisle by first-round submission at the end of the first round. Moving on, up the card, Miguel Baeza versus Takashi Sato. It's underdog time, okay? Takashi Sato is nearly a 2-1 underdog against Miguel Baeza. He's not anymore, but he was, and that line is closing. Oh my god, that line's closing. He was a bit more of an underdog than that last I checked. I think he was like a 15-8 underdog, and now he's 11-8. I mean, see from that what you will, but I like Takashi Sato's chances in an upset here against Miguel Baeza, because I feel like since the fight has been signed, I think the reason the line has changed is because people watched the Matt Brown fight again. I actually picked Matt Brown to beat Miguel Baeza by first round KO. He almost did. Like, if you're the undefeated prospect that beats everyone, and you finish the guy with leg kicks, and you're so explosive and talented, Matt Brown should be like a name-building fight. And it was a good win from Miguel Baeza. He got the job done in the second round by TKO and even almost TKO'd Matt Brown at the end of the first round as well. But don't get nearly KO'd by Matt Brown if you're the undefeated streaking contender. That's just my opinion on the fact. And I feel like Takashi Sato has some real lightning fast hands. I think Takashi Sato would beat Matt Brown as well. Don't get me wrong, Miguel Baeza is a good fighter, but I haven't really seen him tested against too high-level competition on the Contender Series. He had a good performance against Victor Reina, but in my opinion, I mean, Victor Reina came back strong in that third round and had a real good third round against Miguel Baeza there. And Victor Reina's a guy who's been beaten by Louis Koshki on the Contender Series more recently by KO in the first round. So the fact that Miguel Baeza made it look close, and Paliknikov just beat Koshki, so it kind of puts things into perspective about Miguel Baeza's wins. I mean, 5-2 split decision against Leo Valdivia, Gus D'Angelo 2-0, 3-2, 0-0, 0-2. He had a bit of an amateur career. I just feel like the experience of Takashi Sato against better competition is going to pay dividends here. I like his chances to get the KO in the first round and get the TKO finish in this fight. First or second round, I'm going to pick Takashi Sato to get the job done. He's not the bigger guy. He's got a long reach for his size, though. I don't actually know who has the longer reach here. Miguel Baeza has a slight reach advantage, 1.5 inches. But I feel like Takashi Sato is going to get it done with like a 1-2 down the pipe. The shots that Matt Brown were hitting Miguel Baeza with shouldn't be getting hit by Matt Brown at this point in his career, in my opinion. Like lightning fast combos on Miguel. I don't like it. I'm going to go with Takashi Sato. He had a bit of a rough showing against Ben Saunders, but he came back in the second round, much like Miguel Baeza did against Matt Brown. But still, since then, of course, had grappled with Bilal Muhammad and had some problems there. But on the feet, I feel like he's got a really good chance. And he just showed a great performance against Jason Witt in his last one in June, where he KO'd him in the first round. And Jason Witt just went to go on and beat Cole Williams very impressively. I believe it was Cole Williams. Yes, it was Cole Williams by arm triangle choke not too long ago. I like Takashi Sato's chances. Look at the record difference of the opponents here. 10-1, Matt Vale beats him in the second round by TKO. Masayuki Hamagishi, 18-3, KO in the first round. 19-7, KO in the first round. 14-7, KO'd him. Like, he's beat some good guys. 4-1. That's about it. But he's beat a lot of guys. He's fought a lot of good competition. I think he's going to go out there and get the job done against Miguel Baeza by TKO. That's my underdog of the night. Moving on up the card, Amir Albaazi versus Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I'm going to go with Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I like Amir Albaazi. I was thinking about maybe picking him because I reckon he'll be an underdog. I haven't actually seen the odds for the fight yet, but I reckon he'll be the underdog here. Zhalgas Zhumagulov's very good. And I know he's 32 years of age, and some people might judge him off the Raulian Paiva performance. I thought he could have beat Raulian Paiva. I watched that fight again. At the first, I thought, I wasn't really paying too much attention to it. I think I was late to that fight or something along those lines, and people were just saying it was a robbery. But I looked at it again straight away, and I thought, this is a close fight, though. I understand. But then I watched it again more recently, and I can see Zhalgas Zhumagulov really kind of winning that fight based on the pressure that he had. He had a great performance against Raulian Paiva. He could have arguably won, and Raulian Paiva could have arguably won against Kai Kara France. He's no joke, is Zhalgas Zhumagulov. He even beat Tagir Ulanbekov, who's now in the UFC after some good performances. He's beat a bunch of guys, and everyone's talking about him after his last performance against Bruno Silva just a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago. He had that performance. I like it. Zhalgas has beat some good guys. Beat Tyson Nam as well on the regional scene before Nam came back to join back to the UFC. I feel like he's fought too many top competition guys. I know he's 32 years of age, and maybe the size and strength and youth of Albaazi can make up for some experience and technique issues. I just can see Zhalgas grinding him against the cage and landing some good shots on the feet and keeping the pressure on, winning the fight 29-28, unanimous decision, but it's going to be competitive. Moving on up the card, Josh Parisian versus Parker Porter. The legend himself returns. Parker Porter. I'm not going with Parker Porter. I'm going with Josh Parisian to get the job done. Parker Porter is, yeah, he changed on me. I remember a different Parker Porter than the one that showed up against Dalkaus, that fucking meatloaf of a man. I don't see him winning this one. He's very slow, and Parisian's got some good spinning techniques. He sets up things very well. He had a spinning KO on the Contender Series. I think he got another good KO on the Contender Series as well. Yes, a two-time Contender Series performer. He looked very good in both of them. Lost actually leaving the Contender Series, but then grinded his way back, staying active as hell, which I really like the sound of here, because he has fought how many times since the start of 2019? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 2 years. That's very good. Very good activity for a guy. It shows that he was hungry to get back in the UFC. I like the work he's put in. I think he will get it done against Parker Porter by TKO in the first round, especially because Parker Porter, not too long ago, of course, was KO'd in the first round by Chris Dalkaus. Hasn't really given himself too much time to recover, about 3 months. Heavyweights, he's been KO'd before. I'm going to be going with Josh Parisian by first round TKO. He's very light on his feet for a big guy. You wouldn't expect it, but he's got good footwork, good feints, good spinning attacks, diverse techniques. I'm going to go with Parisian getting it done. Moving on to the co-main event. Anthony Smith versus Devin Clark. He ain't no home intruder, but I'm going to pick Devin Clark to get the job done here. I think he's going to really put a beating on Anthony Smith quite badly because I'm done with Anthony Smith. I'm not betting on him anymore. As soon as he got his new teeth, he doesn't care about winning. He doesn't want to dig deep anymore. It just looks like as soon as it's difficult, he shells up like a bitch. And I don't like it from Anthony Smith because he used to be the Lionheart, goddammit. And the Glover Teixeira performance doesn't look too bad in hindsight, I'll be honest. And the Rakic performance doesn't look too bad either, because Rakic and Glover Teixeira are both good opponents. I just think that after watching Devin Clark's style that he used, and the style that he always uses, to be fair, which is the pressure style, the grappling style. He was getting the better of Ryan Spann in the first round using that technique. He had a good first round with Ryan Spann. Eventually got caught in the second round with a big shot and then got guillotined. But still, Devin Clark had a great performance against Alonzo Menifield in the clinch. Just completely outworked him over 3 rounds. I think he can replicate that style on Anthony Smith, who's not the biggest guy for the division. And Devin Clark as well. People forget this real quick. Only guy to drop Rakic in the UFC. Ozdemir had some good shots, but Rakic clearly outstruck him, but Clark tagged him with a big shot in that first round. He's got some power behind his punches, and I just feel like Anthony Smith's going to get pushed up against the cage, worked with knees, and just be outstrengthed by the Devin Clark that we know, because his legs are so fucking huge. It's ridiculous. The guy is like, he's built to hold you against the cage. He's just a brick. He just puts his weight on you. He's got very good pressure. Alonzo Menifield is a ridiculously strong guy, and he couldn't seem to find much separation whatsoever. I don't see Anthony Smith being able to do it, coming to the tail end of his career. 32 years of age, but this is a different 32 than we're used to. He's been KO'd many a time, got TKO'd by Glover Teixeira, been KO'd by Thiago Santos by the body shot, got KO'd by a bunch of other guys early in his career. Aldan Amagov early. He had a couple other KO losses early in his career as well, before he was really on the map and in the UFC, but still, he's been through wars. He's taken his beatings. This ain't a normal 32. This is like an Aldo 32. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Devin Clark is going to get the job done, smash him up. Won't get the finish. I reckon he'll get a unanimous decision win, and there'll be talks for Smith to retire afterwards. I'm picking Devin Clark to get it done. By decision, 30-27, 10-9 every round. Bullies him against the cage and lands good knees and good shots in the clinch. Moving on, Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis. I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes here. I like Derrick Lewis. I keep picking against him because he seems to always let me down, even though I don't pick him. He always has bad performances, you know what I mean? Like, even though he wins, and I'm sure it's real cool, like the Olenek performance, he got the KO, but there was illegal shots to the back of the head. He was losing the first round real bad in the grappling department, which is never a good sign to see, even in the Ilir Latifi fight. Okay, I guess he won. You know, like, it was a weird performance, very close one, back and forth, could have gone to Ilir Latifi. Lost it in the grappling department. He's facing Curtis Blaydes. You know what I mean? Blagoy Ivanov, really close fight. Guess you can give it to Derrick Lewis. Really close one, though. I wouldn't mind if you give it to Blagoy Ivanov. Lost the fight in the grappling department. It's just, I think there's a bit of a problem. And I know why Lewis is able to get out of the positions that these guys put him in. Because if you look at Blagoy Ivanov, Ilir Latifi, and Alexei Olenek, they're not big guys. They're strong, and they're good for the heavyweight division. They're not big guys that can spread their weight out across you and really keep you down when you're a guy like Derrick Lewis, who has that much power and can just stand up out of things. I feel like with Curtis Blaydes, he's a big enough guy and an athletic enough guy to spread his weight across you. And if Overeem ain't getting up off bottom, I don't see how Derrick Lewis is going to be able to. He might have a couple of explosions, but I can see Curtis Blaydes now. He's got 5-round experience. He's going to be confident going into this 5-rounder. I don't see Derrick Lewis going 5 rounds well. Like, he doesn't really go 3 rounds too well. So unless Derrick Lewis finds the punch out of nowhere, I don't see it happening. And to be fair, all of the people that Lewis has faced in Latifi, Ivanov, Olenek, slow plodders. That's what they are. They're slow plodding styles. Curtis Blaydes has got some good footwork. We saw that against Alexander Volkov. He was darting in and out, landing some good popping jabs. Against JDS as well, he's really worked on his stand-up game massively. I think it's going to come in very handy. I think he'll keep rocking Lewis against the cage with some good shots, and Lewis might get hurt for a second. But where other guys stand there and try and throw on Lewis while Lewis swings back with a crazy punch out of nowhere, Blaydes will switch it. I've rocked him on the feet. Wink. Legs out from underneath him, he's going to be on the ground, and I could see Blaydes getting this one done by submission or TKO. I could see it being a more exhaustion-based TKO in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't think he's going to smash Lewis's head off the canvas or anything along those lines. I just think he's going to keep Lewis working enough on the ground and forcing Lewis to defend from his ground and pound enough. Now that he's got 5-round experience with Volkov, I think he's going to be able to keep the pace on him, and eventually Lewis will just shell up and it will be like an Overeem Walt Harris style finish. I just see that happening in the 3rd or 4th round. Curtis Blaydes, I think, is going to have a massive grappling advantage. Anytime he wants to, he can get Lewis to the ground. But I think he's going to work a lot on his stand-up in this fight as well and land some big shots early to try and get Lewis his respect. Because that's when Lewis starts to show up a little bit against the cage, because people forget about this. I know he's the Black Beast, but he got finished by Dos Santos by KO, and he got submitted by Daniel Cormier, and he got KO'd by Mark Hunt in the 4th round and gassed out there. And he got KO'd by Sean Jordan with a hook kick, a lead leg hook kick, and he got KO'd by Matt Mitrione by a ram, which was Lewis shooting and Mitrione like hitting him with his hip and KOing him. Like, he's been finished a lot of times in his career, and I feel like people are going to be surprised when Blaydes gets on top of him and starts landing some good shots and elbows. I could see Lewis rolling over in the 3rd or 4th and accepting the TKO loss. But good matchup, I'm sure. I think Blaydes gets it done. Thank you for watching the video. Click that button up there, and goodbye. Toodle pip.